You're listening to another edition of the Wealth Foundation podcast, where we help educate listeners on how to create a solid wealth foundation to build their dreams. And now your hosts.
Hello and welcome. My name is Frank Rydell, founder of Hurricane Financial. Do you ever wonder how long your hard-earned money will last once you retire? Are you concerned about financial losses along the way that could change the quality of life in retirement? These are common concerns that a lot of people have. Today, we're going to talk about how you can protect your hard-earned money. Whether you have money currently in an IRA or a 401k, we're going to talk with you today about ways that you can secure and protect your wealth so that it can be there for your entire life and you never have to worry or concern yourself with ever running out of money. Well, welcome everyone. We have a great show for you today. Today, we're going to be talking about the indexing strategy and creating guaranteed income for life. Something that a lot of people are excited about these days. It's something that is on the minds of a lot of people, especially as you start getting into that age of 50s, 60s, and beyond. You start thinking about your money and how long is it going to last. So today, I'm joined by Eric Cubolo. And Eric, say hello.
Hey, Frank. How you doing?
I'm good, Eric. Thank you for taking time to be with us today. So we're going to get into this program on guaranteed income for life and the indexing strategy. A lot of really cool things to talk about. It's something that I think is sort of understood by the general public, but there are a lot of misconceptions. Hopefully we can clear up some of that today as we go through this intro into it. So Eric, what I would like to start to show off with you is you and I have had a conversation at some point here recently, and we were talking about life stage planning. And I'd like to give you an opportunity to maybe expand a little bit on what we were talking about recently when you were bringing up life stage planning and how that plays in to an indexing strategy.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we had a great episode last week. We kind of did the overview of infinite banking. Now, that may not be the right stage for everyone. So what I like to ask my clients the same thing. They always say, well, what should I do? And I ask them, first of all, when are you planning on retiring? So most people say 65. Okay, well, let's start planning for 65. And then the second question I like to ask them is, how much money will you have saved when you reach that age? And a lot of people say, oh, well, I'm hoping to have $1 million or $2 million or whatever amount it is. And then I ask them, well, do you know for certain that you will have that amount saved guaranteed? And most people don't know that. The final thing I like to ask them is, well, all right, let's say you hypothetically do reach that age, you have that money, the market didn't crash a year or 2 or 3 before, and you lost 40% of it like it has happened in the past. What I ask them then is, well, do you know if that money is going to last you for the remaining years of your life, guaranteed? And no one that I've talked to knows that with certainty. But the indexing strategy we're going to talk about today is really unique, really amazing, and it covers some of those concerns that people ask me about.
Yeah, Eric, what I find is that when I'm talking to clients a lot of times, we'll have these conversations about their existing 401k or their existing IRA. And that's usually the type of funding vehicle that you would have for an indexing strategy. So in other words, I've helped a lot of people with rolling their money out of situations where their money's at risk. So what you look at with an indexing strategy is you want to accomplish a couple of different things. You're looking at somebody who is in that age group where they're starting to be concerned about their income. Am I going to have enough money to last the rest of my life? And they'll say, well, I have a 401k or I have an IRA. And there are certain rules and things that apply to IRAs and 401ks as far as you having access to those funds. But we can talk about that a little bit more in depth at some point in time. But just to stay big picture, a lot of times, Eric, when I'm talking with a client and I'll say, well, what is your concern? What are you looking to do with this money that's in your 401k or IRA? Because if it's money that is being earmarked for the purposes of my retirement, that they want to have it for their retirement, and that guy says, Frank, it's really for my retirement. I need to make sure that when I'm able to hang it up and go fishing the rest of my life, I have some income coming in that I can count on. So some of the benefits that go along with this type of strategy, I think first and foremost, the biggest benefit is putting your money in a situation where it can grow without risk. If you can eliminate risk, you can eliminate a big problem that most people have with their finances. And then another thing is, creating that guaranteed income that you would have. So you have guaranteed income for the rest of your life. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you think about it, Eric, if you had a 401k or an IRA and you started drawing down on that in retirement and taking money out, if you live long enough, you're probably going to run out of money at some point in time. That's just simple math. Money won't last forever. So there goes back to the question that we asked a few minutes ago when we started the program off, talking about, will my money last the rest of my life? Well, with an indexing strategy, you're participating in a banking index, which is going to track very similarly along with the market. So what ends up happening is you have safety nets in place. So you have the ability to make returns and earn money as the indexes do well. And most of these indexes, Eric, they have phenomenal records, and we use some of the premier indexes out there that have paid out great returns for a long period of time. You can actually then take that money and have it stretch out for the rest of your life. So what does that mean? Even if you live long enough and your account balances go down to zero, that insurance company is still paying you income out of that account that's now at zero for the rest of your life. So what's phenomenal is I've run illustrations for people, and I've sat and had estate planning consultations with people. And in my background in estate planning, we talk a lot about legacy. We talk a lot about extending income. We talk a lot about, having your money last beyond you. And so one of the things that people are always concerned about is, will I not only have income for my life, but will I have income in this account that will benefit my spouse if my spouse outlives me by 20 years, for instance? These accounts can be set up where they're either a single life income, Eric, or a joint life income. If they're a joint life income, it's on the life of both participants, in the marriage, or both partners. So you would end up having a situation where the second to die would have income the rest of their life. And so I'm talking about accounts that get down to zero and it's still paying income. And I mentioned a few minutes ago, I've run illustrations for people, and I've gone through consultations with people where you look at the illustration based on how much money they're going to utilize in retirement and what they currently have. You can do formulas and do mathematical calculations and come to the conclusion that you'll probably be out of money at year 16 or at year 23 or something like that. What's amazing is I can show you an illustration that is going out 30, 40 years. You may have been out of money at 16 years, or you might have been out of money at 23 years. But here you are 30, 40 years later, the account is still paying income. So some of the advantages and benefits are that you have market participation and growth because you're participating in an index, and you're doing it without any kind of fear of risk of loss. So you're not going to lose your principal or go backwards. You're going to create guaranteed income for life. You're also going to have what's known in the industry as an increasing income. So with what happens, Eric, a lot of times with certain types of annuities and products that a lot of financial advisors write, is the person gets to a certain age and then they want to maybe extend it a little longer and not take income for another year or two because they want a little bigger guaranteed income number for the rest of their life, and each year that number gets bigger. With this, they can go ahead and select income right away when they're eligible to select income. And then at that point in time, it can increase as the indexes continue to make a yield. They can increase each year, so you're not basically in a situation where you've got to wait and wait and wait. One of my very favorite benefits of this whole thing, Eric, is the healthcare provision that's built in. For simple terminology, I like to refer to it as a doubler, because what we talk about is with clients all the time is if you've ever gone out and priced long-term care or some kind of health care that you would need for assisted living situations as you get older, it is brutally expensive. These products that we offer and services, the indexing strategy, is going to give you a built-in 5-year provision. So basically what would happen, Eric, it would actually double the income for up to 5 years. And so people say, well, that's great, Frank, but what happens after 5 years? Well, listen, this is end of life type of stuff we're talking about. So statistically, most people, when they get in an end of life type of situation and now they're eligible for these type of additional benefits, which by the way, You're not paying extra money for it. It's built in. Statistically speaking, people don't live beyond 3 to 4 years. So giving a 5-year doubler benefit is phenomenal, because it gives you something that is probably going to last and give you some financial dignity in your final late years, so that you don't feel like you're such a burden on other people. Those are the major benefits of this. There are a lot more, and it can be customized to fit a person, an individual, directly one-on-one. But that's just a conversation we need to have to make sure that those pieces all fit. But yeah, Eric, those are the major benefits of it, and that's what I get excited about when we talk about this with people.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Those are some amazing benefits. I know it's not necessarily right for everyone's life stage. I mean, right now I'm utilizing infinite banking because I need that liquidity and use of those funds. So I want to do investments. But for someone who's approaching that retirement age that wants to know that they're going to have money, they're never going to run out of it. If they get sick, I think a lot of the biggest wealth killers for people in that age are medical issues. I mean, I've seen it happen in my family, and having to deal with power of attorneys and things like that. That just the stress alone may cause illness, and I think that's a big factor that a lot of people don't think about. But when you create these indexing strategies that create guaranteed income and peace of mind, I think it's a great way to help people sleep better at night and give them a sense of security. Now, someone in my age range, I would say infinite banking is right for me, but do people ever blend it? Is there a blended strategy with the indexing and infinite banking? What about your health, and is there income and age requirements?
Most of my clients, Eric, they do have a blended strategy, because we're advisors and we consult. We don't sell products. So we're not in the business of just trying to offer a product and saying, here, you sound like you need to buy one of these or one of those. We're going to go ahead and try to build out a strategy that works from an estate standpoint, so that you're protecting your wealth and your money as you go. To answer your question, a lot of times, one of my very first conversations with people are going to be, okay, so you have a certain amount of money that you're looking to put into something. What is your idea of what you want to use this money for? How do you want to use it? What is the purpose? What is it for? Because again, infinite banking isn't for everyone. It'll fit most people. And again, it isn't an age thing, because I've had clients that do infinite banking policies and they're in their 60s, 70s, and they're doing very effective infinite banking. But the indexing strategy also is not for everyone, because if you have a chunk of money in an IRA or a 401k, you're not likely, and I wouldn't recommend that they do, take that money out to apply it into a type of whole life policy, because now you're basically taking money out of a qualified situation, or money out of a situation where it's tax deferred, paying taxes on it only to put it into a banking structure. People do those things sometimes, but it's not what we would recommend. What we would recommend, Eric, is that if you're doing an infinite banking strategy, that you're utilizing after-tax dollars, you're funding in a policy with the kind of money that you feel comfortable to put in to build your family bank. And then we teach you conceptually how to utilize those strategies to your advantage. With the indexing strategy, that is usually not funded via after-tax cash. That is usually funded through 401ks and IRAs that are just in a rollover position. They can now be rolled over because you've achieved a certain age, or there's a certain, maybe some of these plans have a certain lack of restriction. And you can go ahead and start rolling that out of a risk environment, putting it into a guarantee environment, and getting great returns. There's bonuses that they offer with these accounts. The bonuses are wonderful, but the bonuses alone are not why you do this. They're just nice to have. That's why they call them a bonus. It's not the reason you do it. It's just nice to have one. But yeah, it's not right for everyone. If a client tells me that I have money in my IRA or 401k, but I plan to take out 50% of it when I retire to, buy a cabin up in the mountains, then I would tell them that this is not the right strategy for you, the indexing strategy, simply because you need pools or chunks of money. What would be better for them would be have some sort of a way to fund an infinite banking policy, because with that you can get large sums of money out of a policy, again, with non-direct recognition, to utilize for buying the cabin. the indexing strategy is kind of the crock pot, what I call the crock pot effect, where you have money that is in there simmering and stewing for a period of time, and it's for one purpose. It's for retirement. It's for retirement income. It's not right for everyone. It really comes down to what are your goals? How are you planning to apply what you amassed at this stage of your life? How are you going to apply that in retirement? And then creating a strategy that fits them. One is going to be a very liquid strategy. The other one's going to be very much guaranteed income related. So to answer your question, Eric, I mean, that's pretty much what it comes down to. It's going to come down to what you're trying to use it for. I always believe that you put the square peg in the square hole and the round peg in the round hole. You don't try to switch them. If you try to switch them, you're going to find that it really doesn't work. I think there's a lot of different types of strategies, products and strategies that are offered out there. The biggest problem that I see is that oftentimes the strategy doesn't line up with the objectives of the client. And if you line up the right strategy with the client, so their objectives line up with the strategy, it can be a really good, really positive experience. But if you kind of just sell a product to somebody, they may like it and they may not. And there's probably a pretty good chance that they don't. So that's why we stick to strategic planning and making sure that the objective lines up with the strategy 100%.
I think that's something that our clients definitely appreciate, Frank. Everyone thinks that, a lot of financial advisors have their products, and I think when we come from the aspect of, what is our client's ultimate goal, and how can we provide that with guarantees, I think that's ultimately serving our clients in a better manner versus, we have this product and here's what your options are, and we don't care if you're round or square or octagon, we're going to try to put you in that hole. So that definitely is appreciated by our clients. As far as this product, I mean, is this available to anyone and most advisors? Some people have never heard about these bonuses and guaranteed income and the healthcare doubler. How is it that you have access?
Well, I can give you an example. There are a lot of things out there that advisors can offer. For instance, various annuities and fixed index annuities, and a lot of them are very, very good. The problem is that they're what I call the garden variety type of an annuity. And so what we utilize is an annuity for people who have rollover needs, but it is a hybrid type of an annuity. So some would call it a preferred annuity because it is a very unique annuity, Eric, in the sense that there are very, very few licensed advisors that are actually contracted to offer these type of preferred accounts. So what do I mean by that is the estimation that I've heard over and over again within the industry is about 1% roughly of the advisors out there, whether they be insurance agents, financial advisors, estate planners, typically about 1% of those people are going to have access to what we call the preferred offering accounts. They're the accounts you hear about sometimes and you wonder, wow, how can I get access to one of those? And it's when you compare that to, say, a standard annuity, a fixed index annuity, a variable annuity, the various IRA products that are out there, if you can compare that preferred account to any of the other things that I've ever compared it to, it's pretty black and white. I mean, you can see the difference very, very clearly. And a lot like infinite banking, you find yourself sitting back saying, wow, I wish I'd heard about this sooner. So I always tell people, hey, it's better late than never. But you definitely want to talk to somebody who is, when it comes to infinite banking, as an authorized practitioner. That's something we made sure that our firm offers, is that we are authorized practitioners of the strategy. When it comes to the indexing strategy, you definitely want to work or at least talk to somebody who has access to some of the preferred offerings out there. If you do that, you see a more wider range of offerings, not just your standard garden variety fixed index annuity, which are fine in their own place, but something that may have a few other features and benefits and a little bit more scalability for someone as they're getting older.
Yeah, I definitely think giving people options is what they want, and whenever you can fine-tune it to their needs, that's definitely serving your clients and not just pushing a product. I know we're coming up on our time here, Frank. Is there anything else you wanted to add, or what do we have coming up for next show? Yeah,
Eric, so what we're going to be coming up with in the future shows to follow, or we're going to talk about what I like to call the needle in the haystack theory, which is, why haven't I heard about this, or why haven't I heard about that? And so we'll break it down for you and show you why. When you look at the number of companies, the number of advisors, the number of products out there that do one thing in particular versus something like infinite banking or something like the indexing strategy that can do all that plus more, those are going to be very limited offerings. There's very few people who actually understand, where do I go to find one? How do I design it? How do I help the client get the most out of this? And so that's why working, like, as I said a moment ago, with an authorized practitioner, somebody who is contracted to offer, preferred type of product offerings to people, that is going to put you in a whole different bracket. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more in detail, because not to shine a light necessarily negatively on anybody else in the industry, there are a lot of advisors I think out there who do a good job and certainly try to do a really good job. But unfortunately, there's always a bad apple, and there's people out there who have done things, kind of tarnished in some ways the industry, to where people come into these conversations somewhat untrusting, Eric, and they'll come in and they're think, well, I heard about this bad story. The funny thing is you understand this. Positive stories and positive publicity doesn't really ever get talked about. A negative story or negative publicity gets magnified 10 times over. So sometimes when you end up talking to somebody and there is a period of time where, that's why we've always believed that you don't rush people. You educate them, you lead them, to where you're trying to go, to show them something. And ultimately they're going to make their own decision if this is what they want. And this is something that fits, again, the objective meeting the strategy. And if the objective meets the strategy, it's a beautiful thing. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail on one of the upcoming shows. And we'll get into a little bit more mechanical details on how things like these indexing strategies actually work. We'll talk about crediting methods, and we'll also get into things, Eric, like the infinite banking concept, and get more down into the minutia. What some people like that, some people don't, but we'll get down into the minutia and talk about things like the riders. How do the riders work? How does the crediting methods work with those? How does non-direct recognition work? We'll get into a lot of that stuff in future shows. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear about that as well, Frank. Lots of good stuff coming up. If anyone wants to reach out, feel free to call the number on the screen or visit our website. And we look forward to talking to you next week and also answering any questions in the meantime.
Thank you for listening to the Wealth Foundation podcast. The contents of this podcast are for informational and educational purposes only, and not to be viewed as advice. Results may vary, and listeners are encouraged to seek professional financial advice. To learn more or to submit a question, please visit www.thewealthfoundation.org or call 844-OWN-BANK. That's 844-696-2265. Find us on your favorite social media by searching for #The Wealth Foundation.